We are Team PosFix, and our team consists of Ken Johnson, David Baines, and myself, Akinori Kimura. Initially, when we started the project, we decided to generate our ideas by listing out problems we had. We talked about back pain, headaches, stress and anxiety, and we realized that although each of these symptoms have different treatments, the root cause might come from the same thing. And we're talking about bad posture. There's a ridiculous number of negative consequences associated with bad posture, and since we're three very passionate engineers that want to solve real life problems, we decided to come up with PosFix. We believe that our device perfectly fits into the individual well being as our device category, as our device eliminates potential short and long term consequences associated with bad posture. And we also chose to submit our project to the smartest unsmart hack as we didn't use machine learning in our project. Now I would like to hand it over to David Baines to talk about our demo.
Hi, I'm David. I'll be running through the tech demo. So to start with, this is the shirt containing the Raspberry Pi as well as the 4 sensors with 2 on the shoulders, 1 on the upper back, 1 on the lower back, as well as a flex sensor to get the curvature of the spine. This data is captured and processed in real time on the Raspberry Pi, as we can see the orientation data, as well as the flex sensor analog data, which is then sent to a Firebase database. I'll now go to my colleague Ken, who has a simulation of the app running on his computer, as well as the Firebase database. So as you can see, when he presses start, it starts the app and starts collecting data on the database. As you can see, it's in real time, it's determining whether or not my posture is fit or not based off of some heuristics that we have developed, some simple heuristics we've developed so far. Obviously, these present room for further development. Thank you.
These platforms shown here are a subset of the tools we use to create our project. We use Figma to create the initial UI and UX design. We use React Native to create the front end for our mobile application. We use Firebase as our database management server. We use Python to interface between the Raspberry Pi and our database. And we use our Raspberry Pi to collect data from our sensors and our other hardware components. As you can tell, this was a fairly large project. And so we had to split up the project between our 3 members. And so we had 1 person working on the front end, 1 person working on the interfacing between the Raspberry Pi and the database, and 1 person working on the hardware components. Over the past 2 weeks, we did run into a number of issues. The main one being that we had a bit of a late start due to shipping problems since we were shipping from the US. And since they're going through a bit of a crisis with the storm, the shipment was delayed by a couple of days. And because of this, our different components in our project were developing at different rates. And so our front end was developing a lot faster than the hardware was. And so when we needed data from the hardware in our front end, we couldn't get it because the hardware was not ready yet. And so what we did to overcome this was creating a lot of test data. And so that when the hardware was done, we were able to transition seamlessly from the test data to the actual data. We also had a bit of a problem calculating position values from the sensors, since this was something we wanted to incorporate so that the user could visualize their posture. However, after doing some research, we found out that the maths and the power required was too much to handle for the Raspberry Pi. And we also had some trouble establishing bidirectional data flow between the Raspberry Pi and the mobile application because none of us had ever worked with Firebase before. However, we were able to watch some YouTube tutorials and figure that out fairly easily. So we believe that if we had a couple extra days to work on this project, or if we had started working on this project a little earlier, we could have implemented some additional interesting features. The first one being improving the overall accuracy of the positional data. So looking a bit more into the maths and seeing whether there was anything we could do to increase performance. We also wanted to incorporate a machine learning model to develop the posture rating heuristics. So using sensor values as input to our model, and then determining whether the user has good posture or bad posture and how they can fix it. And we also wanted to streamline our hardware design. Since the one you saw was our very first prototype, we believe that with some iteration, we can improve the design a lot. We all had a lot of fun working on this project since this is something we would all like to use. And we would also like to continue working on this project and see where it takes us. Thank you.